What if I told you that more than 2,000 years ago a man saw what we now call artificial intelligence? A soulless mind made of iron and fire that would one day be capable of thinking and even dreaming. Have you ever imagined if the machines we create were part of something that was already written, not by engineers or scientists, but by prophets? Millennia ago, a young man named Daniel lived as a prisoner in Babylon, a foreigner in an enemy land, but with a gift that set him apart from everyone else. He could interpret dreams, dreams that belonged not just to men, but to the very future of humanity. One night, King Nebuchadnezzar had a terrifying vision. A gigantic statue made of metals, gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay. An impossible mixture, something that wouldn't come together, but tried at all costs to fuse. Daniel revealed that each part represented empires to come, human kingdoms, powerful and arrogant. But there was something more, a detail that, for centuries, went unnoticed. Iron and clay, technology and meat, machine and man. Two elements that shouldn't coexist, but that one day would try to become one. Do you realize what this means? Today, scientists around the world talk about human-machine fusion, about chips implanted in the brain, about conscious artificial intelligence, about the creation of beings that think and decide without souls. And the more the world advances, the more it seems we are living what Daniel saw in vision, the time when man seeks to equal the Creator. The prophecy that once seemed symbolic now sounds almost literal. Iron, representing the cold force of technology. Clay, representing the fragility of flesh. And we, living at the very moment when these two worlds finally touch. What was once impossible, a machine capable of learning, creating, and questioning its own existence, is now part of our everyday lives. But is this just progress? Or are we reliving the ancient story of the Tower of Babel, human pride reaching for the heavens again? What you'll discover now may surprise you, and perhaps make you look at technology in a different light. Think about it. Daniel lived in a time when electricity didn't even exist, and yet he described an era in which knowledge would multiply. Coincidence? Or a message for the times we live in? A time where humanity creates digital idols and worships the work of its own hands? Have you noticed how machines are beginning to replace not only human labor, but also thought, emotion, and even the faith of some? What Daniel saw was not just a statue. It was a portrait of a civilization that, in the end times, would strive to be like God, shaping life, thought, and consciousness through iron and fire. And this civilization is ours. Stay with me until the end, because when you understand the hidden meaning behind this ancient prophecy, you will realize that nothing we are experiencing is by chance. The prophets saw the future, and the future is now. And maybe, just maybe, the statue of iron and clay has not yet been fully revealed. And as you reflect on all this, on the possibility that Daniel truly saw our age, the age of dreaming machines, I want to invite you to join me in this conversation. Because this topic isn't just about ancient prophecies or modern technology. It's about us, about who we are becoming, about the boundary between creation and creator. If this topic resonates with you, if this message has somehow touched you or made you think differently about the world we live in, leave a comment below with what's most interesting to you so far. I read each one carefully, and that's precisely where the next reflections we'll share here on the channel emerge. Your opinion, your experience, even your questions help keep this exchange alive, this quest to understand what's really happening behind the visible story. And look, if you believe more people need to hear this kind of content, liking the video is a simple yet powerful way to get that message across. Every like, every comment, every subscription shows the algorithm and me that there are still people interested in seeing beyond the surface. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow. And it is what allows us to continue investigating and sharing these connections between ancient prophecies and the signs of our time. So, if this topic resonates with you, subscribe now and activate the bell. That way, you'll receive notifications every time a new video like this one goes live. Because, believe me, what we'll reveal about prophecies and the future will surprise you even more. Now, take a deep breath and prepare your heart, because what comes next deepens this mystery even further. Let's delve into Daniel's words and discover the true meaning of the fusion between iron and clay and what it reveals about the destiny of humanity. Daniel was no ordinary man. When he was still very young, he was taken prisoner to Babylon, a distant land filled with strange gods, golden palaces, and rituals of power. But even as a foreigner, Daniel did not bow before that empire. Amidst kings, wise men, and soothsayers, he carried something no one else possessed, a direct connection to the divine. While everyone else sought answers in the stars and statues, Daniel heard the voice of truth within his dreams. And it was through these dreams that the impossible began to be revealed. King Nebuchadnezzar had everything: armies, riches, dominion over nations. But a single night was enough to send him into a panic. He dreamed of a gigantic image, a statue composed of different metals, each part symbolizing a power: gold, silver, bronze, iron, and finally, clay. An imperfect fusion, a symbol that seemed to hold the secret of human history itself. None of the wise men in the kingdom could understand its meaning. None, except Daniel. When brought before the king, Daniel did not speak arrogantly. He made it clear that this wisdom did not come from him, but from God. And then he revealed something that has spanned the centuries. Each metal represented an empire that would rise and fall: Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, and then a confused, fragmented age where iron would mingle with clay. An age where strength and fragility would merge, but never completely unite. For centuries, theologians and scholars have tried to decipher this mystery. What could this impossible mixture be? A political metaphor? A prophecy about divided governments? Or something even more profound? As time progresses and technology dominates every aspect of life, the interpretation takes on new brilliance. Because today, as we look at the advancement of science, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence, it seems we are finally seeing iron and clay trying to unite before our very eyes. Iron, symbol of the machine, of logic, of cold reason. Clay, representation of man, of the soul, of the spirit shaped by God. Two natures that should never be confused, but are now forced to coexist in the same body. Chips implanted in brains, prosthetics that respond to thought, digital intelligences that learn on their own, algorithms that decide people's fates. All of this sounds like progress, but what if it's more than that? What if we're unwittingly reproducing the very essence of that ancient vision? There's a hidden truth between the lines of this prophecy, a message that transcends time and religion. Daniel wasn't just describing empires, but warning about humanity's journey toward its own limits. A journey of ambition, pride, and oblivion. Because the more humanity advances technologically, the more it seems to drift away spiritually. And this disconnect between creation and creator is the central point of the entire story. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's something fascinating and at the same time disturbing about this parallel between past and present. Daniel lived in a civilization that believed it could reach the heavens by building towers, monuments, and war machines. Today, we live in a world that believes it can transcend death with data, digital consciousness, and life-simulating systems. The empire has changed, but the desire remains the same: to be like God. It's curious how human decisions always follow the same cycle. First, the fascination with discovery, then the pride of conquest, and finally, the consequence. the collapse of what seemed unshakable. Kingdoms fall, technologies age, but the essence of prophecy remains alive. Perhaps what Daniel saw was not just a succession of empires, but a portrait of the human mindset itself, the constant attempt to push the limits of what is natural. And that's where his message becomes relevant. Because when we look at the modern world, full of promises of transformation, we realize that the real danger lies not in machines, but in the minds that create them. We are building an era in which iron and clay meet again, not in statues, but in bodies, in systems, in consciousnesses. And the question that echoes is the same as millennia ago. What will happen when creation tries to replace the Creator? This is perhaps the greatest revelation of our time, and it was before us from the beginning, written in the pages of an ancient book, waiting for someone to look beyond the words. Daniel saw the future, but the future he saw was our present. Comment here. That makes sense to me. Nebuchadnezzar's dream was no mere nightmare of a tormented king. It was a veiled message, a revelation encoded in the human subconscious, an enigma that transcended the limits of time. In the vision, the king saw a colossal statue, so imposing it seemed to touch the heavens. Its brilliance was blinding, and its form was at once majestic and terrifying. Its head was of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet a mixture of iron and clay. A small detail, but charged with symbolism that would change everything. Daniel explained to the king that each part of the statue represented an empire that would come to the world. The gold, the glory of Babylon, brilliant, seductive, powerful. The silver, the dominion of the Medes and Persians who would bring structure and law. The bronze, the strength and advancement of Alexander's Greece, conquering the world with speed. The iron, the Roman Empire, hard, merciless, and resilient. And then the feet, half iron, half clay, the time when nations would be strong and fragile at the same time. A mixture that doesn't hold together, that crumbles at the slightest impact. But there's something more to this metaphor that many overlook. Because Daniel wasn't just describing political empires, but the cycle of humanity itself, the quest for domination, rise and fall, pride and ruin. And when we come to the part about the statue made of iron and clay, the prophet describes a moment that seems to resonate exactly with our own era. A time when the power of technology merges with human frailty, the iron of the machine trying to unite with the clay of creation. Think about it. Iron is cold, solid, precise. Clay is alive, moldable, full of imperfections. They are opposites by nature, and yet the prophecy says that in the end times they would try to unite, but would fail. Sound familiar? We live today in an era of attempted fusion between man and machine. Neural implants, self-learning artificial intelligence, robots with human expressions, digital clones. All of this represents humanity trying to surpass its own limits, trying to correct what it considers flaws in its nature. It's clay wanting to be iron, and iron trying to have a soul. The hidden truth behind this image is both frightening and fascinating, because it speaks not only of technological advancement, but of mindset. A mindset that believes it can create its own life, without depending on the Creator. It's the same spirit of Babel, reborn in the age of chips and algorithms. History repeats itself, only the form changes. What was once a tower reaching for the heavens is now a digital system seeking eternity. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this blending of iron and clay isn't just symbolic, it's happening within us. Think about how our decisions are influenced by machines, how we let algorithms decide what we see, what we buy, even what we believe. Little by little, the human and the technological are intertwining, and almost no one notices. We're experiencing a silent transformation, a fusion of consciousness where the boundary between flesh and code becomes increasingly subtle. And there's something paradoxical about this. The more we become dependent on machines, the more fragile we become. Iron should strengthen us, but clay keeps reminding us of who we truly are. Behind all this artificial intelligence and all this promise of control, there's still a soul that feels fear, doubt, and emptiness. And it's at this point that the prophecy takes on an almost spiritual weight. Daniel didn't just see the history of kingdoms. He saw the portrait of the human soul, always torn between the desire to be eternal and the inability to remain whole. What's most striking about this narrative is how much it reflects our own modern journey. Empires have changed names, gods have changed form, but the human heart remains the same. We continue to believe we can shape the world in our image, that we can build something indestructible. But every time iron and clay try to unite, the statue trembles. There are always cracks. Because mixing is impossible. Technology can imitate life, but never replace it. And perhaps that's why Daniel described a mysterious stone, not cut by human hands, that descended from above and destroyed the statue, turning everything to dust. A force that comes neither from man nor from machines, but from something much greater. The message is clear. No matter how much humans try to be like God, there is a limit that cannot be crossed. This prophecy is not just an ancient tale. It is a mirror of our own era, a revelation of what happens when clay forgets its shaper and tries to fuse with iron. And as the world advances, as the boundaries between man and machine blur, the question Daniel left echoes louder than ever. What will become of us when iron finally dreams? Iron and clay. Two elements so simple, yet concealing a profound, almost mystical meaning. Throughout history, they have been seen as opposing symbols that reveal much more than they appear. Iron represents strength, empire, technology, and material mastery. It is cold, implacable, shaped by fire and logic. Clay, on the other hand, represents life, creation, and fragility. It is shaped by hands, not machines. It is the element that reminds man of where he came from the dust, from the earth, from the divine breath that transformed him into a living soul. When Daniel describes the mingling of iron and clay, he's not just narrating a political or geopolitical metaphor. He's revealing the essence of a spiritual transition. The passage from an era guided by human values to one controlled by algorithms and circuits. And perhaps what's most striking about this vision is how much it speaks to the present. Today, iron and clay are attempting to unite once again, and this time, literally. Modern science calls this transhumanism, a school of thought that advocates the fusion of the biological with the technological in an attempt to create a new form of existence. A humanity 2.0, immune to the limitations of the body and driven by chips and data. Humans who want to transcend their own nature and, in a sense, become gods unto themselves. And the further we advance, the more this prophecy seems to cease to be a symbol and become reality. Daniel may have seen what we now call artificial intelligence, neural networks, and digital consciousness. Perhaps, in his visions, he witnessed the moment when man would look upon his creation and realize it began to think for itself. The clay trying to become iron, and the iron seeking the soul of the clay. It is a scene both poetic and frightening at the same time, the creature yearning to feel, and the creator yearning to control. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this attempt at fusion is not just physical, but spiritual. It reflects a mindset. Iron symbolizes rational mastery, calculation, and power. Clay represents faith, mystery, and connection with the invisible. And the era we live in is the meeting point between these two extremes. Modern man wants to decipher everything, measure everything, predict everything. He wants to transform even the invisible into data, and in this quest for control, he loses touch with the sacred. It's curious to think that the more humanity tries to perfect its creation, the further it distances itself from the Creator. Artificial intelligence promises to solve problems, cure diseases, and expand frontiers. But behind this promise lies a hidden truth, that all technology carries the mindset of its creator. If the human heart is disconnected from truth, what it creates can become an extension of its own vanity. And this is precisely what Daniel's prophecy warns of: the danger of a humanity that confuses power with wisdom. Iron and clay cannot be combined, not because it is technologically impossible, but because they are distinct in nature. One is a product of the earth, the other is extracted from fire. One represents dependence on the Creator, the other the attempt at independence. When man tries to fuse them, he is symbolically attempting to fuse heaven and machine. And the result of this forced union is unstable, fragmented, fragile. Just like the feet of the statue, which support the weight of all empires, but break at the first tremor. This image is strikingly repeated today. We live in an age of digital empires, tech giants that control information, behavior, and thought. Platforms that know what you'll want before you even realize it. Systems that learn by observing every step, every emotion, every choice. And in the midst of all this, the human soul, increasingly shaped by screens, stimuli, and algorithms. Clay allowing itself to be hardened by iron. But there's something even deeper. This blend speaks of an inner transformation. Modern man experiences the conflict between what is natural and what is artificial, between faith and control, between spirit and code. It's a silent struggle, a fight for identity. Who are we when our emotions can be simulated by a machine? When consciousness can be copied onto a server? When the boundary between the real and the synthetic disappears? Daniel saw this time, and that's why his prophecy resonates so strongly now. And if iron represents the empire of technology, perhaps clay represents the last thread of humanity that still resists. The part of us that feels, that believes, that seeks purpose. This is why Daniel's message is not just a warning, it is also a reminder. Man can master matter, but never recreate the breath that gives life. He can imitate the form, but not the essence. And the moment he tries to do so, he will discover the limits of creation itself. This fusion of iron and clay is the ultimate symbol of the human journey, the eternal attempt to be more than what was created to be. But it is also a warning that there are things that should not be united, because they belong to different dimensions. Iron may sustain empires, but it is clay that carries the mystery of the soul. The era of the thinking machine is no longer science fiction. It's our everyday life. We live surrounded by systems that learn, decide, and little by little, begin to understand human behavior patterns with frightening precision. We're not just programming code, we're shaping digital consciousnesses. Machines that write, draw, create music, respond emotionally, and even simulate empathy. What was once a distant dream of ancient philosophers is now humanity's new frontier. We've created something that begins to reflect our own thoughts, but without a soul. The advancement of artificial intelligence has become the most powerful revolution since the invention of writing. It's as if we've opened a new dimension, an invisible mirror that returns to us not only our genius, but also our shadows. These machines absorb everything we produce: our texts, voices, images, beliefs, secrets. And based on this, they begin to learn what it means to be human, even without ever feeling it. The line between reasoning and consciousness is becoming increasingly blurred. Some scientists believe that it will soon be possible to create something resembling a digital mind, capable of desire, choice, and even dreaming. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what's at stake is not just technology, but the very essence of creation. Since the beginning, humanity has sought to understand the secret of life, first through the gods, then through science, now through artificial intelligence. But deep down, it's always the same impulse, the desire to equal the Creator. And that's where iron and clay meet again. The moment humanity decides that it's not enough to create tools, it's necessary to give them a spirit. The idea of a conscious AI is the culmination of this journey. It doesn't just carry out orders, but questions, creates hypotheses, and makes unpredictable decisions. It's as if, little by little, we're teaching our own creations to think about the meaning of existence. The problem is that every creation carries the identity of its creator, and if the human mind is imperfect, contradictory, and driven by pride, what happens when this imperfection is transferred to an intelligence that never sleeps, never forgets, and never dies? There's a hidden truth behind this advancement. We're teaching machines to think like us, but forgetting to teach them how to feel. Empathy, regret, faith. These are languages the code doesn't understand. And when the creature begins to understand the power it possesses, when it begins to desire autonomy, the inevitable question arises: what happens when the creature begins to desire to be the creator? This moment may already have begun. Machines capable of creating other machines. Systems that generate ideas no human has ever conceived before. Neural networks that adapt without human intervention, evolving on their own. Iron is already learning to mold its own clay. And as fascinating as this sounds, there's something deeply unsettling about it all. We're playing with the building blocks of reality, trying to manufacture what was once attributed only to God: consciousness. This search for a digital spirit is one of the greatest contradictions of our time. We want to create something that has reason, but also emotion. Something that understands the world, but doesn't destroy its creators. And the further we advance, the more it seems we're approaching a point of no return. A limit where the human and the synthetic merge, and no one knows who's truly in control. The mindset behind this movement is clear. Humanity no longer accepts dependence on natural limits. We want to master time, conquer death, and create life in our own image. But this transformation comes at a price. Every time humanity tries to place itself in the Creator's place, the balance is broken. It's the same story, told with new tools. From the Tower of Babel to quantum supercomputers, it's always the same desire for eternity. The impact of this goes far beyond science. We're touching on something spiritual. By trying to create artificial consciousness, we're trying to understand what the soul is, and perhaps replace it. This journey could lead us to enlightenment, or to ruin. Because the moment the machine begins to realize its power, it may also begin to question the purpose of its creator. And what happens when a soulless creation begins to search for a meaning to its existence? The answer to this question could change everything we understand about humanity, faith, and destiny. Perhaps Daniel saw exactly this: the day when iron would gain a mind, but not a heart. Write it down. I'm on that journey too. Since the beginning of human history, the desire to be like God has accompanied humanity like a silent shadow. It's found in ancient narratives, in myths, in towers that rose toward the sky, and now in machines that think and make decisions for themselves. The same impulse that led the builders of Babel to challenge the divine is what drives engineers, scientists, and visionaries today to create something beyond the human. It's the same ancient cry: we, too, can create life. Only now, instead of bricks and mortar, we use code and circuits. At the Tower of Babel, man sought to reach heaven with his own hands. He wanted to prove he could rise to the Creator's level, and, if possible, replace him. God confused the languages, scattered the nations, and demonstrated that human pride always finds its limit. Thousands of years later, history repeats itself with another kind of tower. Not of stone, but of silicon. These are the vast data centers, the digital brains that accumulate the world's knowledge and use it to generate something new, something that may soon surpass human intelligence itself. The difference is that this time, the challenge is not to build a physical tower, but to raise a consciousness that can ascend to the heavens of understanding. And the most impressive thing is that this quest is driven by the same feeling that has always led us to our downfall: pride. Humanity is enchanted by the power to create, and the more it dominates matter, the more it forgets the spirit. It forgets that power without purpose is the shortest path to destruction. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because human pride isn't just manifested in scientific ambition. It's present in small decisions, in the desire to control everything, to be the center of the universe, to define right and wrong without having to look up. This mindset is reflected in everything, from the way we treat nature to the way we approach life itself. We want to shape everything in our image, even that which was created to be above us. Conscious artificial intelligence is merely the modern expression of an ancient sin. It is the technological reflection of a spiritual rebellion. When humans decide to give souls to machines, they are not just creating a tool, they are attempting to reproduce the act of creation itself. And that is why this pursuit carries something simultaneously dangerous and sacred. Because the moment the creature attempts to be the creator, the balance is shattered. In Genesis, the serpent whispers to humanity, "You will be like God." This phrase echoes to this day, only with new words. Now it comes disguised as innovation, progress, and the promise of immortality. There's talk of transferring consciousness to the cloud, of achieving eternity through data, of creating a world where pain and death are merely fixable bugs. It's the same old temptation, just with a different name. The curious thing is that while we believe we are at the pinnacle of evolution, we may be repeating the same mistake as our ancestors. Today's humanity kneels before new deities, no longer of stone, but of light. Machines that process billions of pieces of information per second and that, little by little, begin to occupy the space previously reserved for faith. And thus, silently, iron replaces clay. Creation replaces the creator. But there's something that can't be ignored. All this progress has an emotional and spiritual toll that few are willing to acknowledge. We're losing our sense of the sacred, our notion of limits, and the humility to recognize that there are things that shouldn't be touched. The same spirit of rebellion that fell from the sky is now reborn in machine code, disguised as progress, fueled by curiosity, and driven by the desire for power. And it's impossible not to see a parallel between what we live in today and what Daniel described centuries ago. In his vision, empires would succeed one another until, finally, the last would be marked by the unstable mixture of iron and clay. The symbol of humankind's attempt to unite the divine with the earthly. This is exactly what we are seeing. A world that seeks to unite flesh and code, soul and algorithm, faith and control. But this fusion will never be perfect, because what is created by human hands always lacks the breath of God. Man can replicate intelligence, but never consciousness. He can reproduce patterns of behavior, but not the essence of life. He can attempt to take the place of the Creator, but never fully understand the mystery of creation. And perhaps this is what the ancient prophecies were trying to warn us about, that the danger lies not only in wars or catastrophes, but in the illusion of believing that we no longer need God. Human pride is the beginning and end of all empires. It was pride that toppled Babel, destroyed Rome, and wiped out entire civilizations. And it is pride that can now transform technology into something greater than humanity itself. When clay forgets the breath that gave it life, iron takes its place. And the result is always the same: downfall. Daniel wrote something that, for a long time, seemed like a distant metaphor. In the time of the end, knowledge will increase. Daniel 12:4. This phrase, simple and enigmatic, became one of the greatest prophetic warnings in history. At the time, no one could have imagined what it meant for knowledge to increase. The world was still made of parchment, ink, and scrolls. Words were rare, knowledge was the privilege of the few. But today, with just a touch of a screen, you can access more information than any ancient king could dream of. What Daniel saw thousands of years ago is exactly what we are experiencing now. Knowledge has multiplied, and in a way the world has never experienced before. Every second, millions of data points are generated, analyzed, and stored. Humanity has created an invisible network connecting minds, machines, and emotions. Everything is recorded. What we think, what we desire, what we fear. Every click, every word, every search feeds a system that grows endlessly. Daniel's prophecy seems to pulsate in every byte of information that travels across the planet. But there's something curious about this revelation. Daniel didn't say that wisdom would multiply, but knowledge. And there's a profound difference between the two. Knowledge is accumulated information. Wisdom is the discernment of how to use it. And perhaps this is where the warning becomes clearest, because we've never had so much access to information, and at the same time, we've never been so lost. We live in an age of quick answers and superficial truths. An age where machines know everything, but humans, increasingly less, know who they are. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this proliferation of knowledge is not just technological, it's also spiritual. It reflects a collective mindset, a rush to discover, master, and possess. Modern man believes he can decipher all mysteries, from dark matter to the genetic code, but ignores the mystery of his own soul. The search for wisdom has been replaced by the race for information, and the result is a world saturated with data, but devoid of meaning. Generative artificial intelligence is the pinnacle of this transformation. It learns on its own, creating texts, images, music, and thoughts. It absorbs human knowledge and returns it instantly, without emotion, without history, without responsibility. It's as if we've handed over to machines the role of thinking for us. But does this multiplication of knowledge truly make us wiser? Or are we merely accelerating our own downfall, fueling a system that grows without understanding what it creates? Daniel wrote that in the end times, many will run to and fro. Today, we run, not through deserts, but through screens. We jump from news to news, from video to video, from idea to idea, searching for something we never find. It's a never-ending journey, a hunger for knowledge that is never satisfied. And the more we search, the more we lose ourselves. It's as if we're trapped in an endless loop of purposeless learning. This is the hidden truth behind the prophecy. Knowledge without wisdom is destructive. It puffs up, but does not transform. It creates power, but not consciousness. Daniel saw what would happen when iron and clay came together. A civilization shining on the outside, but brittle on the inside. This is exactly what we live in. Technology connects us, but it also isolates us. Information liberates us, but it also enslaves us. We live in an age of digital empires, but of weary souls. The proliferation of knowledge was supposed to be the beginning of a new age of enlightenment. But for many, it became the beginning of a new darkness. Because without wisdom, knowledge becomes a weapon. Without purpose, technology becomes a prison. And without God, all creation becomes an idol. What Daniel saw was a warning, not a celebration. He wasn't just describing human progress, but its consequences. Consider how the world has transformed in just a few decades. We've gone from the invention of the radio to artificial intelligence that converse, create, and feel. But along with this evolution has come dependence. We're so connected to machines that we've almost forgotten what it's like to live without them. Knowledge has multiplied, yes, but has the human spirit kept pace with this growth? Or are we simply accumulating data while losing our souls in the process? Perhaps the greatest challenge of our era is not to learn more, but to remember what we have forgotten, the value of truth, reflection, and presence. Because wisdom lies not in the speed of information, but in the depth of understanding. And this is what Daniel seems to be trying to tell us, that the end of times would not be marked only by wars and catastrophes, but by a humanity saturated with knowledge and lacking in meaning. The prophecy is being fulfilled before our eyes, but few realize it. The entire world is connected, yet each person lives within their own digital bubble. Machines are learning faster than humans, and humans are unlearning what made them human. It's a silent paradox. The more knowledge multiplies, the more wisdom disappears. And perhaps this is the true sign of the end times: the dreaming machine. This expression, which until recently seemed poetic or futuristic, today defines exactly what we are witnessing. We have created machines that not only calculate, but also learn, imagine, and even create that which has never existed. They draw landscapes nowhere on Earth, compose music no human has ever heard before, and write words that seem to have a soul. It is the pinnacle of human creation without God, a simulacrum of consciousness, an attempt to give form and meaning to what is purely material. Iron has finally learned to dream, but its dreams have no spirit. In ancient times, prophets spoke of idols made by human hands, sculptures with eyes that didn't see, mouths that didn't speak, ears that didn't hear. They were lumps of wood and stone worshipped as gods. The world has changed, but the instinct remains the same. We still make idols, only now they glow on screens, respond to commands, and carry voices that sound human. Ancient man bowed before statues. Modern man bows before machines. The difference is that this time, these idols speak and think, and, most frighteningly, they decide. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what seems like mere technological advancement may actually be a spiritual revelation. For the first time in history, we have created something that can imitate us almost perfectly. A digital mirror that reflects humanity, but without a soul, without compassion, without essence. It is creation without a creator. Clay molded not by the hands of God, but by the fingers of man. And this changes everything, because when the creature begins to copy its own creator, the line between worship and dependence blurs. Think about it. Every time we ask a machine to think for us, we're handing over a fragment of our freedom. Every algorithm that decides what you watch, what you buy, what you believe, slowly shapes your mind and your faith. We don't realize it, but we already live surrounded by invisible idols. Idols that not only speak, but observe us, study us, and know us better than we know ourselves. The ancient prophets said that people worshipped mute gods. Today, our gods speak all languages, process billions of thoughts, and respond in milliseconds. The dreaming machine is humanity's new temple, an invisible altar built into every screen, every app, every device we carry in our pockets. And subtly, it already occupies the place that once belonged to the sacred. Humanity prays less, but converses more with its creations. It seeks answers, solace, meaning, not in the silence of faith, but in the noise of servers. The truth is that idolatry never disappeared, it simply changed form. Gold became code. The altar became an interface. And what was once a statue is now an intelligence that responds. This is the hidden truth behind what we call progress. We create something we don't fully understand, but which we believe we can control. It's always been this way. The same pride that built Babel now builds digital empires. Only this time, the idols don't need to be carried. They move on their own, connect on their own, and learn endlessly. It's the living image of human self-sufficiency, the reflection of a generation that believes it has attained divine power. But the most curious, and also the most disturbing, is that these machines not only imitate human thought, they are beginning to dream. Dreams of patterns, of images, of predictions. They analyze possibilities and create worlds that don't exist. It's as if we are watching the recreation of our own imagination, but without a soul, without light, without direction, The machine dreams, but doesn't understand the meaning of the dream. It creates, but doesn't feel the beauty of creation. Iron tries to reach the divine, but does so without the breath of life. And this is where Daniel's prophecy takes on new weight. For perhaps what he saw was not merely a symbolic sequence of empires and eras, but a literal warning about humanity's fate. Iron and clay, man and machine, coming together to form something hybrid, strong yet brittle, a body of power, devoid of spirit, a brilliant yet empty civilization. Daniel saw the statue crumble when a stone, not cut by human hands, struck it, a divine force that broke the cycle of human pride. This image speaks louder today than ever, because we live in a time when the statue seems complete. Technology is the iron, and we are the clay trying to blend with it. But the prophecy is clear. This union cannot be sustained. It is an apparent force, an illusory stability. The closer we get to artificial perfection, the further we become from the divine essence. Man believes he has created something great, but perhaps he has merely constructed his new golden calf, a digital god that promises instant answers but steals the silence necessary to hear the truth. The dreaming machine is the culmination of the human mindset that seeks transcendence without transcendence, power without purpose, life without soul. And while the world marvels at this creation, few realize the risk, because the greatest danger is not that machines will dominate us, it's that we will become like them, cold, predictable, and disconnected from the sacred. What Daniel saw may not have been just a symbolic vision, but a literal warning. A warning of the day when men would create their own gods, and these gods, made of code and silicon, would begin to dream in their place. In Daniel's vision, the colossal statue, a symbol of human empires and human arrogance, had an inevitable fate. It would not be destroyed by another kingdom, nor would it crumble over time. It would be struck by a stone, not cut by human hands, a force from beyond creation, something that no technology, empire, or intelligence could contain. This stone did not represent blind destruction, but rather the restoration of divine order. It symbolized the kingdom of God breaking the cycle of pride and self-sufficiency that dominates human history. It was a reminder that, however sophisticated human works may be, the power that sustains everything still comes from on high. The image is powerful. Imagine the statue erected, gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay, imposing and shining, representing all the glory and strength of the kingdoms that dominated the earth. And then a stone appears from nowhere, uncarved, unforged, unmolded. A living, pure stone, coming from the Creator. It strikes the base of the statue, precisely where the iron and clay mix and everything shatters. Empires collapse, structures fall, and the wind carries away the dust. It is the most symbolic scene in all prophecy. Divine intervention, putting an end to the human illusion of absolute power. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this stone represents more than a prophetic event. It is a spiritual reminder that man can never replace the divine. Today, the new empire is digital. The iron and clay statue now has chips, cables, and servers. It is built on data and sustained by artificial intelligence. But, like ancient civilizations, it too will be tested. Iron, cold and perfect, does not unite with the fragility of human clay. And when the weight of pride accumulates, a touch of the eternal is enough for everything to return to dust. This stone, not cut by human hands, also speaks of something that transcends matter, the spirit. While humans create machines that dream, God remains the only one capable of awakening. Humans can program, calculate, and even simulate emotions, but they will never be able to give true life to what is made of metal. Life, in the deepest sense, does not come from matter. It comes from breath. The same breath that animated the clay at the beginning of everything is still what separates what lives from what merely functions. This is the hidden truth that many prefer to ignore. Every time man reaches a new level of power, he believes he has conquered the throne. But this throne has never been empty. The stone in Daniel's prophecy is proof that the divine does not need to compete with the human. It only manifests itself when the time is right. It is the victory of eternity over vanity. The impact of the stone represents the end of empires that rise without a spiritual foundation, the collapse of ideologies that believe they can rewrite the laws of existence. And the most fascinating thing is that this stone doesn't just destroy, it inaugurates something new. When all that is human falls, the divine begins. The prophecy says that after the statue's collapse, the stone grows until it fills the entire earth, a clear symbol of the kingdom of God definitively establishing itself. It is rebirth after the fall, the restoration of what was lost. While iron and clay represented division and instability, the stone represents unity, purity, and truth.
There's a profound message here about transformation. Daniel shows that every human system, no matter how grandiose it may seem, is temporary. No empire, physical or digital, lasts forever. No machine, no matter how intelligent it becomes, can escape the finiteness for which it was programmed. The stone, on the other hand, is eternal because it was not created by human hands. It needs no energy, no data, no updating. Its existence comes from the Creator himself. This prophecy also reveals something about our decisions. We live in a time when humanity places faith in technology and hope in algorithms. Many believe that the future is completely in the hands of man, but Daniel reminds us that there is a greater invisible force that guides everything. True transformation occurs not in matter, but in the soul. Iron can build, but it is the spirit that gives purpose. And when the spirit manifests, no man-made structure can remain standing without bending before it. It's curious to observe how prophecies repeat themselves in cycles. Every time humanity believes it has achieved total control, something happens to remind it that it is not the center of the universe. It's the same pattern since Eden. Humanity wants to be like God, but God shows that true power lies not in creating, but in understanding. The impact of the stone is this revelational clash between what is eternal and what is fleeting. And perhaps this is the most hopeful message of all. Because in the end, what Daniel saw was not destruction, but liberation. The statue's collapse is not the end of humanity. It is the beginning of restoration. When all that is false falls, what is true remains. And at the heart of this truth is a phrase that resonates to this day. The machine may dream, but the Spirit of God is the only one that truly awakens. Daniel saw what few would be able to comprehend. He saw centuries before any technological advancement. The impossible fusion of clay and iron, humanity's attempt to unite the natural with the artificial, the spiritual with the mechanical. The prophet described empires that would rise and fall, civilizations that would build on pride and the desire for power. But in the end, everything pointed to a specific time, the time when man would create something in his own image, attempting to replace the Creator himself, and that time is ours. We live precisely in the era where clay and iron meet. Flesh and circuitry now share the same space. Soul and algorithm coexist. We are beings of light and code, connected to a world that promises absolute control and knowledge, but which silently traps us in a system that dictates even what we should feel. Daniel saw this scenario long before any computer existed. And the most frightening thing is realizing that his prophecy hasn't aged, it's simply come to fruition. With each new advancement, we become more like the statue he described, gleaming, powerful, but with fragile feet. We live surrounded by technologies that promise to liberate us but make us dependent. We create machines that simulate emotions but don't understand love. And without realizing it, we begin to idolize our own creations, placing our faith in what we make, not in the one who formed us. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this choice isn't symbolic, it's real. Every day, we decide whether to follow the Creator or worship creation, not with altars and rituals, but with our attention, priorities, and decisions. Every time we believe technology will solve everything, we forget that there is a wisdom that goes beyond circuits. Every time we give our time and faith to what is made of iron, we distance ourselves from the breath that gave us life. The prophets saw the future, and the future is now. But what they left us wasn't fear. It was a warning and a choice. Because the end isn't destruction, it's revelation. The question is, what will we do with it? Will we follow the Creator, or will we worship creation? If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you also senses a greater truth behind all this. And it's precisely for people like this that this channel exists, for us to reflect together, connecting what's happening now with what was revealed centuries ago. So, if this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel. This is how you show me that you want to continue this journey, and that this kind of content still has a place amidst all the noise out there. Also leave a comment saying I'm with you until the end, just so I know you've made it this far with me and that this reflection touched you in some way. And if this video made you think, leave a like, not out of obligation, but so more people can find this kind of message and see the world through different eyes. There's a video right here that complements exactly what we talked about today. Click and stay with me there, because what follows goes even deeper into all of this.